Thank you all. Those are very thoughtful and like context-specific responses, which I think, like you all said, it's going to vary for everybody. So appreciate that. I'd like to talk a little bit about specific strategies or techniques, or maybe even platforms where students can post about academic accomplishments, research-related accomplishments. Like, is there anything different to keep in mind for that style of social media posting? Diane, would you start us?
Yes. I'm so sorry. Some a message came up and let me read the question again. Um, so I would say when it comes to techniques, one of the things that I do that you totally don't have to do is I have a social media plan for myself on the things that I decide to post. One of the things that I'll give you an example. Let's say you are competing in let's say you're gonna present in the research forum, which I know a lot of our students do. They present, or if you're not presenting and you're just attending the research forum, that would be one of the things that I plan out. I may have someone take a photo of me as I'm checking in, or a photo of the speaker, or I'll sometimes if you don't want to. If you have a faceless account, which is a big thing now, if you don't want to post your face, you can post a picture of the program. That will be something that I post about. Or when it comes to the lab, I know with lab it can be very tricky if you have not essentially publish your research yet. You may want to keep some of that information private until you find your findings. But you can still, let's say, I used to love chemistry lab. I have like a science background. So I would post me in a lab coat and like photos of like the beakers that I'm cleaning kind of thing. So that's still posting you in the lab, even if you're not giving us too much of the lab per se. And if you attend like any conference or writing any paper per se. So that's usually, I think when I was writing my thesis, one of the things I used to post about a lot, especially on Instagram, is anyone else up? Like I would just post a story poll because I would be writing at like 12, 1 o'clock, and I'm like, when is this gonna stop kind of thing? So I would post that on my Instagram just so that people can like kind of interact with me because I think yeah, every student like that's writing their thesis is going through the same thing at the same time. So, but I'll let Dr. Hollingsworth and Katie add more to that.
Thanks, Diane. That's great. I have a suggestion that's around kind of the syntax you might use for a post when you're writing about academic research. And it's borrowed from our playbook as professional communicators. We're always trying to demystify research and help people out in the community and lay people understand what research is about and why they should care. So I would suggest to try to write, if you're talking about your academic research and your scholarship, try to write it in everyday language. Try to get away from jargon and a lot of scientific words that the average person may not know or understand. And just recognize if you're on LinkedIn, people have expertise in many different areas. And so, they may have a master's degree or a PhD, but not in your field. And so you can't assume that there's this common knowledge around your particular field. So try to explain it in a way that's very accessible. Use language that's everyday language, conversational as much as you can. And if you have already published some research or you've co-authored a paper, you could write that caption in that conversational language, but then link to the paper where it is published if they want to read more about it and really learn all the nuts and bolts of what your study may have been or what the findings are. They can do that by looking at the paper or looking at the publication. So I think that's important to note, and it's something that we do as communications professionals. We're always trying to sort of interpret to the public and to others what our faculty are researching and writing about. And it's something we really spend a lot of time working with faculty on, helping them to speak in a way that any person could understand. We're always trying to answer what we call the so what question. So helping people understand why they should care and why this is relevant to their lives.
Can I add something really quickly To help you with that, we have an event called the Rebel Grad Slam, where you actually, every November, you get to actually present your research to a large audience where you have to explain it as if they do not know anything about your world, because most of them do not. They have different area of expertise. And one of the main reasons we have Rebel Grad Slam is to actually help you to be able to do just that. So the applications will be coming up sometimes early fall, but I want it to be at the top of your mind right now. And this past year, we had the most amount of applicants. We had about 100 students compete in the preliminary rounds. And then we had students, when you win your session, you move to the semifinals. And then only 9 students, from 100 to 9, only 9 make it to actually to the final. And then we have 3 finalists. And the winner, if you win, you get to compete regionally. And if you win that, you get to compete nationally. And at every step, you win scholarships. This year, we gave over $14,000 in scholarship. And I'll be remiss if I don't say that because I market this event.
Thank you very much for that plug, Diane. Rebel Grad Slam is a super fun event, super great way to practice those research communication skills. Thank you, Diane. And Katie, did you have anything to add about specifically academic or research related posting?
I think Diane and Karen covered a good portion of it. Yeah.
Thank you. So I want to skip ahead a little bit because I think this question kind of leads into one of our other questions about like the specific type of post strategy. So I'm looking at question 7 for our panelists. How would you recommend that students tailor their social network or social media communications depending on their professional aspirations? Like what kind of career they're looking to go into, academia, industry, government, whether they're considering becoming entrepreneurs, the whole kind of spectrum of things. What would you recommend?
I would probably start with doing a little bit of research, which I laugh because I'm sure everybody on this call is very well acquainted with research. But in the social media world, looking at other industry professionals in those different areas and kind of seeing what those leaders do, and then figuring out, what makes sense for you and what kind of, either audience you're trying to grow, if you're using LinkedIn just to kind of stay professionally active and kind of showcase your skills and techniques. Just like take the time to think about that, think about what your goals are, look to see what other industry leaders are doing, and then kind of challenge yourself, I suppose, to kind of post from there. But that's the approach that we usually recommend for people getting started on social media or finding different ways to use it, is kind of start with that research and then thinking about how to differentiate yourself or what you can do that kind of works in that same industry.
Thank you so much. Yes, Dr. Hollingsworth, what would you add to that?
I would say within LinkedIn, you can take a look at the different professional interest groups that exist. That's something that has been important for my presence and profile, I think. To join those industry specific groups has been helpful. And it's a place where you can meet like minded people, people who are at varying stages of their careers, whether it's a junior level or mid level or more senior. But it's a way to kind of distill and narrow down your interest and really get in the room with people who may have studied the same thing that you're studying or may have a similar degree or similar background. I find that to be really helpful. Another thing might be joining local organizations or student organizations and being involved in their programming and then posting about your experiences in that group. And I'll just share an example. So I'm a member of the Public Relations Society of America. Well, there's a student companion group to that's PRSA. So then there's PRSSA, Public Relations Student Society of America. So it's kind of the student companion version of the organization. And getting involved in that group would give you the opportunity to go to mixers or to go hear a lecture or to be involved in a panel like this, that we're doing right now. And then, being able to get back on your social media site and post about that and say, I attended this great lecture. I heard this leader in my field present about this interesting aspect of research, and here's what I learned. And then when you do that, you also can try to tag those organizations. So that increases the opportunity for people to see your information and to increase your engagement. So those are two little strategies I would offer that I found to be helpful. So.
Thank you. Diane, is there anything that you would add to that about being kind of industry specific?
No, I think they both covered it.
Wonderful. Well, thank you all so much. So, kind of shifting back a little bit, and I know you all shared some kind of warnings at the beginning of things that students, may wish to avoid. I'm hoping we can build on that a little bit. Are there any like specific mistakes you've seen students or just professionals and, from any industry make in these platforms, whether it's through their posts or through their comments? Anything that you would add that students should have some caution about? Let's say, Diane, would you kick us off for that one?
Yes, one of the things that I recently saw on TikTok that I think is just hilarious is whenever someone is getting like a few followers, the comments will be like, let me go see what you posted on Twitter in 2015 before I decide if I'm gonna follow you. So that has been like some of the things that I see on Twitter. So I would say if you're saying that I'm going to take the social media thing very seriously, it might be good to go back to your page and archive a few things you posted when you were 16. One of the things I did, one of the things I did when I took on this job, because I know I would be doing a lot of public speaking in some way, somehow people will find me. So I went to my Instagram and archived a lot of the posts I made when I was in college and was not thinking when my brain was not fully developed yet. So I went to kind of like just archive these posts just because they were not professional posts and that's not the light that I want people to see me in. So I went in. They were not inappropriate, but they were not necessarily what I want people to see. So I just went on my page to just archive a lot of these posts. That's one of the things that I did. And also, I went on my following, and I'm like, I don't need to be following these people anymore because the people I followed when I was 18, they're not necessarily the people I want to follow now. So I did a lot of unfollow, not to friends, but like some of the celebrities, I'm like, yeah, I don't argue with your values anymore. And I just unfollowed a lot of the celebrities that went left, in my humble opinion. So I did that. And another thing that I've been doing as well is I'm very careful on who I post comments on, even if I know anonymous comment is a thing, but I'm very careful on whose page I post a comment on or like. I don't know if you notice on Instagram now, if you like something and someone follow you, the little heart button, like the little heart shape will show that this person liked this thing. Or if you repost it, it's now like you can see like who reposted. I'm like, why are you tattletelling? Like this used to be fun. Like I can like what I like. People don't necessarily need to see, but now like people can clearly see what you're liking. So I'm like, maybe just careful on what you're liking and what you're reposting, especially on Instagram. I share a lot of reels with my friends, and sometimes if I see they liked it already, I'm like, okay, I don't need to share it with you anymore because I see you already liked it. I guess that's a good thing, but just be mindful of that because social media is not as private as it used to be anymore.
Thank you very much. Katie, is there anything that you would add to that?
Those are all such great tips. I think, another one that I think both Diane and Karen touched on earlier is posting frequency is something that I kind of see as maybe like an error that people can make. That be careful to post when you have something to add to the conversation. The rule I usually tell people kind of in the when they're managing on behalf of a page is along with being consistent, like Diane mentioned earlier, is to post when you have something good to post. That's really the best rule. When you have good content, or when you have, another kind of like point you can make into a discussion or a conversation. People can sometimes get overwhelmed with all of the different ways to post or things to post on social media. And so take it slow and really be mindful of how you're using your voice, I think is a good thing to be aware of, and try not to do too much necessarily.
Wonderful, absolutely. Dr. Hollingsworth, anything that you would add to that?
So all of those points. Maybe if I had one other tip, it might be just be certain to be authentic. Be careful not to overstate your qualifications, don't embellish. Just be true to who you are and present that person and that professional. Um, and Diane spoke to this a little bit earlier. As a student, people don't expect you to know everything. You're still in a developmental stage. You're still learning. You're still gaining expertise in your field, and so it's okay to say, I'm at this point in my program, and this is what I'm focusing on, or I'm doing this particular project, and here's where my area of emphasis is. But just be authentic about where you are, and be truthful about your aspirations and where you want to go and where you want to land with your career, but be careful not to overstate or embellish where you are in your academic career and in your career aspiration. I think that's important.
Thank you so much. So, approaching these tools with intent and mindfulness and authenticity sounds like it's really key to begin building things up. I'm wondering if anyone can address this question from Jessica in the chat. Is Substack being used as a professional tool?
I think it can be, especially for people who are kind of like experts in a certain area. Um, like to me, Substack is kind of like a newsletter with extra features. So it's kind of like a different sort of version of Twitter, but also kind of like the old Medium, which was the old social media platform. I've been in the industry too long when I talk about platforms that nobody's heard of. But I think it can really be used as a professional tool if you're kind of doing those regular communications on a certain subject and you're looking at it to share your expertise or share your perspective. It can also kind of go the other way if there's a lot of different kinds of Substacks out there too, and sometimes people have um, like interest areas that aren't necessarily connected to their professional world, and sometimes that's okay too, to just show whatever that other side of yourself is. So I think like with everything, like Alyssa summarized a minute ago, approaching it with intent is really key, and then you can kind of decide if you do want to use it as like an extension of your professional um, social media presence.
Thank you so much for jumping in on that, Katie. But for my last question for our wonderful panelists, I'd just like to ask at the end of these sessions, is there anything that you'd hoped to share that you didn't have an opportunity to share? Do you have any final tidbits of advice or guidance for our students? And I will go ahead and start with Dr. Hollingsworth.
Thanks, Alyssa, and thank you again for the opportunity to serve on this panel today. I did have a personal scenario I wanted to share about the power and value of LinkedIn. So, two great things happened to me because of being on LinkedIn and having a pretty strong presence there. About a year and a half ago, I was invited to serve on a national panel for the American Marketing Association. And I was invited by one of the organizers who found me on LinkedIn, read my credentials, felt that a lot of my experience aligned with the panel and with the conference. And so they invited me to serve on that panel. It's not something that I sought. I didn't know that person. He was from Virginia Commonwealth University. I didn't know him at all. And so that was a wonderful opportunity to serve on that panel and to be part of that. And in a national platform. And I didn't just look at it and go, wow, okay, is this legitimate? I did check. I went through other sources to find out who he was and to make sure he was a real person. But that was really a wonderful experience that I wouldn't have had I not been on LinkedIn. And the other I wanted to offer is a time that I reached out to a colleague here at UNLV, a more senior colleague than me. And I reached out via LinkedIn and sent a personal note and just said, hey, I would love to learn more about your origin story and your career path. Would you meet with me? And that was the beginning of a long-standing friendship and professional relationship. And after that initial conversation, she actually started an affinity group that's still going now for women on campus. And she said that that was in part due to, my reaching out and our conversations. And she realized that more young professionals needed to connect and get to know each other. So it's been a wonderful tool for me. And I wanted to just share those two personal examples.
Thank you so much. What beautiful stories, and what way to demonstrate the impact of opening doors through these platforms. Thank you so much. Katie, any last words of wisdom or tidbits to share?
Karen's stories are like the best. I would say just kind of expanding on that a little. So it's very easy. I guess this is the advice I give to a lot of people. It's very easy to get caught up in all the kind of things that you can do on social media. It's very easy to get overwhelmed. And I think, Karen had two great examples of at the end of the day, even I like forget like the point of social media really is supposed to be to connect. Like it's to connect with, people you don't know, and kind of build that community. So I always just encourage people to remember at the end of the day, like try to make it about the community. If you're thinking about that community, you really can't go wrong.
Oh, that's wonderful too. Thank you so much. Diane, any final words of wisdom to grace us with?
Yes, it's like, how do I top that? But two things I would leave you with is be authentic and be consistent. You can never go wrong with those two things. I think Dr. Hollingsworth mentioned something earlier is that when it comes to social media, you want them to meet the same person they would meet in person. So don't overextend yourself, don't embellish yourself. So I'll say be as authentic as possible. And everyone actually has a voice. So ensure that the voice you use in person is very consistent with the voice that you are using online. Because if the way you post and the things you share online, and then when the person meets you in person, that is not the way you speak at all, you don't even use those words, there can be kind of like a disconnect with your online presence and when someone actually meets you in person. So I would say just be authentic and be very consistent with what you do, whether it's posting or in life in general. For me personally, when I started posting consistently, I just made it a point to just consistently post. On my personal blog and also on LinkedIn professionally. And I didn't even know that I was building a communications and marketing portfolio. So when I went from sciences to pivot into communications and marketing, I kind of use my personal platforms as my portfolio because that's one of the things that I had been building. So making that switch from science to communications and marketing, which are two different worlds, so making that switch between like in my career was easy to make just because I had been consistent and I didn't even know that I wanted to be in communications and marketing when I started doing it. So just be consistent in anything that you do, and social media is just one of them.
Wonderful note to end on. Well, thank you all so much. Thank you, Karen, Katie, and Diane, for sharing all of your wisdom and guidance with us today. Thank you, students who attended. And we welcome, of course, any questions to the Grad Academy after the fact. And I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good one.
Thank you.